guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Healing for the Soul podcast. I'm your host, Heather, and we have a special guest co host, Sue, with us again. And we're excited to be back for another episode. And today, I think me and Sue had been having some personal conversations just in our, private time that we have together. And we started talking about, how easy it can be to get lost in our careers sometimes with all this noise because there's just so much going on social media. There's and me and Sue are both coaches. We've been coaches for the past few years now, and we've been teaching our expertise. And so me and Sue are both no stranger to investing in business programs and marketing programs. And that's actually how we got connected, was through a mutual mentor that we were sharing. And I think we both really agree that this is a really good topic to talk about, because I think that there are so many people out there trying to help others because they recognize how amazing it feels when you are able to do something for yourself and create a transformation or create a powerful or positive result for yourself. And then I know for me, and I know for Sue, like when we are able to do that, it becomes really overwhelmingly like an overwhelming craving to share what you've learned and what you do with other people. And I know so many people, especially in the coaching space and industry, similar to the therapist industry, any personal development, self-help, self-education industry. I know that we can all probably resonate with, learning something and then it doing something really amazing for us, and then wanting to really kind of create that wave, that ripple effect, and help other people do similar things and have similar success. And I know that along the way, you can be told so many stories and so many promises. And, I feel like me and Sue both feel like we got caught up in some big illusions around money and, what we really like, what the whole purpose of getting started in this career was. And we thought that it would be a good conversation to have on the show, just because I think it can be really healing to hear the stories that aren't being talked about a lot. And I think, like, just as I've been a coach for the last 4 years, and I've met so many other coaches, and I've seen them almost lose their light. It's like they work so hard to gain a light, and then they wanted to share that light, and they end up in these situations where they're taught, okay, this is how you share, this is how you build a program, this is how you scale, and make sure you charge enough for it. And
Yeah.
so, Sue and I, we've both been in this situation too. So we would just wanted to talk about that today. So thanks so much, Sue, for coming on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Sorry for my appearance, but I got the times mixed up, and that's what it's like to live with ADHD. But I'm doing great. I'm really excited about this topic because we had this whole, like, our whole conversation could have been a podcast that we had last week. And it's really important because it's so hard when you want to get your message out to break through that noise and not to get drawn in to those flashy stuff that you're going to be able to quit your job in 3 months and you're going to be able to be financially free and all this, and I made this and I made that. And I think that's part of the lure, is a lot of people are dissatisfied with their current situation, and they believe that that type of money would change everything. And yeah, it does. But I made the mistake of thinking that that was my ultimate goal. is money, money, money. And I kind of lost what I was trying to get across, my message. And it just, it took a while to try to break free from that grasp that they have of promising all of this stuff and making it sound like it's a simple thing to do. And God, how long have we been doing this? And they don't tell you all the stuff that happens that you have to do behind, and how much
Yeah,
time,
no. And as somebody who's invested, I'm talking way too much money
I don't
in
even want to
business
say.
coaches. I'm not, yeah, I'm almost embarrassed to
I had to
say
put
how
my
much
kid
I've
through
invested.
college.
Right. Yes. And, you know, what the thing is that, I guess sucks the most about it is those people, I think that they called me in because I could tell that they were doing really well. But I think like the issue comes with, one of my mentors who's an amazing mentor. She definitely knows what she's doing. And she definitely has amazing ideas, but she's been doing this for almost a decade, you know? And the truth is, it wasn't until the last, few years of that decade that things really started changing for her. And so, but that's really jarring to the people, for me specifically, and I don't think she even realized it, which, and that's the other thing. These business coaches, some of them are amazing, but I think sometimes they forget, they've been doing so well for 3 or 4 years in a row that they forget that it took them 5 or 6 years to even get there to begin with. Yeah. And so these people that come into their spaces that are brand new, like, or brand new to whatever they're teaching, and brand new in business, or their business is only 2, 3, or 4 years old, and they're still trying to build this momentum. They're still trying to build this credibility and this authority. And these people come in, they pay $10,000 just to get this information. And then they realize this information, it's almost irrelevant. It's almost irrelevant without the time, energy, and effort put in. And so I think like I think that there's not enough communication about the truth when you sign up with a lot of these things. And I think that that's why like it was so incredibly important for me to be so honest with like my program just out the gate. Like, this is not for you if you're not actually craving to do some inner work, if you're not actually craving to figure out how to set better boundaries or better time management or whatever it is, that if you're not actually really wanting to do these things and put your work in or take action, then, and there's a lot of action to be taken in these types of journeys, whether it's business related or it's inner healing related or it's personal development, self-education. There's a lot of work that goes into it. And I think because on the surface, there's so much make 10K in this amount of time in 30 days or whatever. Well, what do you think you have to do? Because I guess I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like all I know now is I want to be completely honest when somebody's like, oh, I want to do what you're doing or whatever. And I'm like, honey, it's not for the weak because it takes a lot of time to build an audience. It takes a lot of time to, and for me, from my experience, it can take a lot of time to figure out like what your personal message is, especially for somebody like me who, I feel very multi-passionate, multi-dimensional. Like I am a yoga instructor. I'm a meditation instructor. I'm an energy healer. I'm a life coach. I'm a health coach. Like I'm all the things and I'm very passionate about all of it. And I think they all work together. And when you come into the coaching space, that's a no. That's an absolutely not. You have to pick one. You have to get really good at it or you're not going to be successful. There's a lot of rules, I think, that can disempower people almost immediately, straight out the gate, like trying to do this, trying to build a career in this. And I know that ultimately we get into this or we want to get into this. I mean, I get the money thing. I get wanting to make money because I've been there too, like you, Sue, where I remember whenever I was investing in these business coaches and, I was trying to do the things that they were telling me to do. And all of a sudden, and even though they were trying to tell me like, hey, don't come at them like they're a number, that was almost impossible to do. That was almost impossible to follow their strategies, to do the things that they were telling you to do, and to remember that the person on the other end of that message or that DM or whatever it is was also a human.
Yeah. I think for me, the big thing was, I don't know if I want to say it's fear they instill in you, or that if you fail, like if this doesn't work for you, it's because of you. You didn't do it right. Or if you don't do this, you will not be able to move forward. And yeah, granted, I think they count on the fact that I forget what one guy told me. It's like, 97% of the people won't put in the work. And so that's on them. And so but you don't want to be that 90%, 97%. Like I think you're the 3% that would really, and so for me, a lot of these people get me because they start to make me feel like I'm a
You could be
I'm a
different.
loser if I don't want to do this. Like I
Yeah.
am not going to ever be great or successful if I don't get this knowledge and do what they say to do. And as time went on, realizing, wow, a lot of like I have a friend that just signed up for this program, and it is almost like a verbatim to one of the things that I'm doing, like exactly how they're saying, "Oh, I have to do this," and I'm like, "Yep, yep, 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 yep." And so they're just, like a couple of years behind me. They're trying to get everything set up and the groups and uh the messaging and all that kind of stuff, and promising them that they're going to be able to quit their job. And the thing that's a little bit different is they are part of groups, support groups, where they're seeing people do that. But they don't. But again, I was trying to explain, and you and I had this conversation. I I have 2 kids. I have one that's in college, and I'm homeschooling. I'm homeschooling these kids or whatever. I cannot spend 12 hours a day doing this. And
Exactly.
look on my schedule, like, oh, at 8 I do this and this is. I'm like, I can spend like maybe an hour, 2 hours maybe in the morning if I get up early before my kids, and then maybe at night. But again, like, okay, but what's my sacrifice? Is it the fact that I'm not spending time with my family because I have to put in the hours. And so I think that was the thing that really it made
Yeah. And
me
I think
feel bad
I
about
agree.
myself, like I was doing
Well,
something
and
wrong.
I agree with that because I was the same way. Like when I first started, I was doing all the things. I was putting in the effort. I was, you know, ignoring the boundaries and the priorities that I had set for myself, literally going against what I teach, you know. So add that to feeling more like a fraud, like I'm not even listening to myself at this point, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm trying to make money now. And so now I'm going against what I said was important to me because I have to make this money now, right? Like I have to make this a money thing. And now I'm in a race to see who can be the quickest to get 10K and be at the top of the group or whatever, right? Because now there's this competition because there's other coaches here. And now we've got to see and prove that what the coach is teaching us is working, right? We want to
Mhm.
be the golden student. And so that worked out of me, me working out of alignment with how I wanted to operate. That worked. I made a bunch of money. And I saw a lot of results. And when I say a bunch of money, it really wasn't even that. It was a bunch of money for me, right? Like crazy for me. Like, oh wow, like I'm actually doing something. I'm making some moves. I'm getting some things. This is really cool. But I quickly burnt out in that cycle, that repetitive cycle. And my daughter and my boyfriend were quickly getting very irritated with me and my work ethic because I was now working outside of normal working hours that I had set for myself. If my daughter interrupted me during that time when I was trying to do those tasks and get my to-dos done for the day, I was terrible to her. I'm like, I'm literally getting totally out of alignment with everything that I like got into this for just to make money doing this. And and again, coming back to, I totally understand like the need for money. Yeah. I get that we have to spend money to live or whatever. But for me, and I definitely, and I'm not even saying like this is doable for many people. It's hardly doable for me because my goal was always to become like self-sustaining and like kind of go off grid. I always wanted to kind of disappear and go off grid. And since I became a coach and really since I decided like I care about, just being with my people, I want to teach. I love to teach. And then that's how I kind of found my way. And that's why I want to create Consciousness Leadership Academy, where I can certify mentors and energy healers and different things, because my methods of how you're going to be successful in doing this is building it through your own heart, building it through your own alignment. Like, what works for you? Don't sit here and build a program that is not going to be sustainable for you. Because I know for me, the one-on-one program, I loved it because it helped me get everything that I needed to set me up for my career. But ultimately, it wasn't sustainable for somebody like me, or maybe even you, Sue, who is going to homeschool their kids, has multiple children running around, has a husband to take care of or whatever, to make sure like the house is clean and everybody's fed and all these other motherly responsibilities. And as a woman, as a mom, and then on top of that, trying to have a career, there's so many hats you've got to wear. And I think it is so important for people so that they don't give up in this, because I think it can be so easy because you feel like you feel like you need to constantly be investing in like knowledge, because that's how they make you feel. So, what's so funny? When I was making the most money in this career that I've ever made, it was all going right back into my business coaches. It was all going right back. I didn't even really get to keep any of that money that I was making because I was working so hard. And then I was feeling that pressure of needing to continuously invest. Otherwise, I was going to lose it. Yeah. And what was so funny is if I would have I've heard this so many times from different coaches that they will invest $30,000, $50,000 into whatever, and they won't even use it afterwards. And I remember hearing that from so many different coaches, and a lot of them were spiritual coaches saying this to me, saying, you know what, I invested in these things. I invested in these mastery classes, these masterminds, and I don't even use anything that I learned there. And I have to do my business completely aligned with spirit. And if it's not aligned with the infinite spirit, then I'm out of alignment with how I want to live my life, right? And that's what I teach. I teach people how to live their dream life. And when I'm not acting that way, when I'm not doing things that are keeping me from being able to show up the way that I want to for my daughter and my husband and myself, and I'm doing things that don't feel good for me, like, and what's crazy is it's not, and I remember you felt this way too when we first got together, because we were doing very similar things, and I was kind of helping you work through any resistance to it. But I think together, even though we were doing these cold DMs, right? We were like messaging these random strangers saying, hey, how are you? It's really nice to meet you. Like, even though we weren't selling anything or kind of being sleazy, there's just something off with that strategy. Like, there's just something off, like having to message 30 people a day, add new 30 people a day. I swear to God, I'm not even exaggerating. I don't think I ever got one client, not one client from that strategy. All the clients that I believe that I got, even though I was doing all that work, it was like the clients that I got, they just saw something that I had posted and then they came to me. And so I quickly started to realize I don't have to do this. I don't have to do these things that are taking me hours. If I just align with what I'm teaching and allow what I'm teaching to shape the way I show up for my career, things will change. And that's exactly what's happened. And the hardest part about that is being able to nurture that in time. So, as somebody who's invested a bunch of money, you're going to do it anyways. Whether you're listening to this and you're a newbie, maybe you're in the middle of investing in all of these things, or maybe you're not even a coach yet, but maybe it's something you've thought about, but there's a lot of unknown with it, right? And so I'm hoping that so far this conversation is insightful or helpful. But, even though I was told so many times by so many different spiritual mentors that I crossed when I was brand new, that all the stuff that they had invested in was worthless. But I think not necessarily worthless, because I think we have to go through it. I think we have to sometimes take those L's or take those losses and go in, because they're not really a loss. I don't really like to look at them as a loss, more so a lesson, right? And I think I wish I could have gained my confidence and gained this understanding and knowing without going through all of that. But obviously, sometimes we have to go through hell to realize the truth, and sometimes we have to go through these roller coasters so that we can find what is actually meant for us by going through things that are not meant for us. And I think that sometimes it's just inevitable. But I hope that if you guys are maybe like me and Sue, and maybe are on the other side trying to rebuild your passion and your momentum, but in your own way, your own unique, intuitive way, that maybe this will be encouraging for you. And it's just been crazy.
Yeah. I did spend quite a bit of money. And I guess I feel like, I did learn a lot from each thing I took. But I guess the thing was making you feel like if you you can make 10K a month if you charge $5,000 and you only have to get 2 clients. Right? But you have to, obviously, you can't come out the gate charging $5,000. You have to slowly build that money up.
Well, and I've been doing this for 4 years, and I still feel like it's not a matter of can I charge $5,000 for my knowledge, because I think sure I could, but I just don't want to.
I think that's the whole thing. And they're like, oh, it's the imposter syndrome, and you just don't feel like you are worthy enough to, and I'm like, well, no, I mean, I think, I have great information, and so I don't think it would be unreasonable. But then it goes against the fact that when I was looking for help, that would have been way out of reach for me. And so all of these people that's so out of reach for almost 90% of the people that you come in contact with, what about them? What about the people? And so if my goal is to try to help parents and help them have a better connection with their kids, then I'm doing a disservice if I'm going to, like I told you, I saw this website and I'm like, this woman, what I do charges $10,000. Like, what parent can afford $10,000 to take a 12-week course? It just kind of floored me, because they were making me feel bad. Like, these courses were making me feel bad for charging so little, or, reel them in with the little stuff, and then you can go for the kill, and you can get that big ticket item. And I would rather have low tickets item and tons of people can
Over
get it
deliver.
than
Well,
have
you
2
know
or
what?
3
That's
people
another
that
thing.
can afford my services.
Yeah. And that's another thing too with the, the whole $5,000, $10,000 programs. I've one of my coaches, like one of the questions that they would ask us a lot is, does the person that you're on the phone with have a $3,000 problem, a $5,000 problem, a $10,000 problem? And it's like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Every problem is if somebody's having a real problem connecting with their kids or regulating their emotions or trusting themselves or seeing new perspectives, struggling in their relationships, struggling financially, struggling in business growth, what in the world makes you think that the problem has a price? And what in the world makes you think that the problem can be the person with said problem can afford whatever price you've set? And that's why, like, I've always priced my stuff based on what felt good to my nervous system.
Mhm.
And so I would take into account how much energy and effort that I have to put into everything and kind of divide that out. But it always kind of comes back down to just like, what I want people to be able to afford this. I actually want to make a big difference. And so, like you were saying, if I think about me, because that's another thing they teach. Your niche, your perfect niche is you from 5 years ago or whatever, your past you. And so you want to tailor all of your content and all of your programs and all of your knowledge to that person. And you want to speak directly to that person. And that's great and all. But me 5 years ago would have laughed at you if you would have come to me and said, hey, I'll help you regulate your emotions, or hey, I'll help you break these toxic patterns that you're in, which is what I do, right? And what I had to learn 5 years ago. And had they been like, I'll teach you all that for $5,000, I'd be like, well, I don't have $5,000, so I'll figure it out some other way. Like, that's exactly how I would have responded. And once there was a period where once I try to get my price up to this point, I'm like, I don't even feel comfortable saying this to you. And like you said, they make you think that it's something you need to work on your worthiness value. Oh, you need to work on your confidence. You need to work on this. And it's like, no, honey, I can teach this all day. I'm very confident in the transformation that this stuff can provide. And because I've seen it time and time again. But there's just a certain level where I'm like, I can't do this to people. I cannot ask for this amount of money. And so then that brings me back to, I think the most important thing is, especially as people who just want to help others with new perspectives and new understandings so that they can have a new experience and have more positive, empowering experiences within themselves and with their relationships. And I think what's most important is building offers and building processes that align with how you want to live your life and going from there. And so, I mean, at Consciousness Leadership Academy, once we have these certification programs, that's exactly the methods that I would be teaching, that I would help people. Because I help people understand how to create their own schedules, how to set their own boundaries, time management. And then, so once you have these foundations and just being able to navigate everything, because I do work with a lot of people with ADHD and different things where it can be difficult to organize and manage and different things with the noise happening. And then on top of that, all of these things telling you the right way and the wrong way to do it. And what I am really passionate about is getting people back into alignment with how do you want your life to look? What do you want your life to look like? Because most of the time, I think, some people think that they just don't want to work, but I think that that's not true. I think like sometimes they're like, well, I want to do this, but I don't want to have to work really hard to do it. And I can agree with that, because if something is going to burn you out, if you have to work really hard to have it, how sustainable is it really? How long are you going to be able to keep this up before it takes you out and you're not here to experience any of it? To me, that's the most important. My dad had a massive heart attack at 55 years old because he was somebody who overworked himself because he believed he had to. In order for him to even be slightly ahead, or even for him to be able to survive, he believed he had to work really hard to get there. That man was one of the most stressed out men that I had ever met. And that is why he had a massive heart attack at 55. And one of the main reasons I even got into what I'm doing is because I wanted to make sure that I healed my stress response and my nervous system so that I did not die or get heart disease at a very young age, because these patterns run in my family. And, from the research and everything that I understand, disease is not passed down genetically. It's passed down habitually, meaning you're not just in line for heart disease. So, just throw it all out. No matter what you do, you're going to get heart disease just because your dad had it, right? Or your grandma had it. No, the diets, the lifestyles, the stress responses, the emotional responses, all of those things are the things that get handed down to you from your parents. And if you continue to follow in the same responses and the same habitual habits and patterns and lifestyles that they carry, then you are in line for those things. So one of the main reasons I even got into my career that I'm in now is to make sure that I could heal my nervous system and my stress response. And then all of this noise about, okay, well, now that you're a expert, now that you're an expert, now that you can guide people, now you need to make some money. Now you need to get famous. Now you need to get known. Now you need to whatever. Now you need to break the ceiling. And I got so caught up in that for a while. And I was like, yeah, I'm important. I have to do this. And it's not that I don't believe that I'm important. It's that stuff is not why I got into this, even though they paint this pretty picture and they make you think that you're not really a coach or you're not really doing anything if you're not here with us. Yeah. Like that FOMO, that fear of missing out or fear of not reaching your potential. And I think I think it's so important for us as an individual to define what success means for us, and make sure that and health and happiness, success, health, and happiness. I believe we should create our own individual definitions of what that means for us, and then align our lives and our careers, our personal and professional lives with those definitions, and really figure out who, and for me, the reason why I think like what I do is so important, helping people getting back to themselves. I don't think I could have made my own definition had I not gone through that process. But now, as I've gone through these processes of just self-discovery and self-mastery, now I trust in myself so much to be able to stop, pause, recenter myself, and figure out, what does success, health, and happiness mean for me? If I take everything else away, if I strip all of these illusions away, all of these other realities happening, all these other people, all these other rules, if I strip all of that away, what still do I want to hold on to? What are the things that are important to me? And then aligning my priorities and my boundaries professionally and personally to those definitions. And what I find is I'm automatically happier. My stress levels are balanced. Like I'm not in a stress response or in survival. Things aren't perfect, but I can clearly feel and tell that I'm in the right direction, or I'm where I need to be. I don't feel like I'm somewhere that I'm not supposed to be, or I'm doing something that doesn't feel good for me, like I was when I was working towards this wealth and fame, right? And thank God, this is crazy. I'm just now realizing this as we're having this conversation. But kind of thank God that my mom got sick. Like, I love my mom, miss my mom, but her getting sick was really actually the wake-up call, the turning point for me. Like, holy crap, I'm getting down these rabbit holes that I want to get away from, that I clearly wanted to get away from. But it's so easy to fall back into these things that you want to break free from, especially when you go into these careers, or you start trying to move into an entrepreneurial space, or and be more independent on your own and have a little bit more time freedom, and you're trying to create financial freedom. It is so easy to get lost in all of that noise of that.
Yeah, and I think a big factor that people should probably realize is that we live in a fear-based world, right? We're always being shown things that make us fearful, which then keeps us where we're at, right? So there's so many things that are being told to us that are ingrained in us. Rich people are bad because they're greedy, or you can't make it because if you do, then a mom and pops don't make it, and you'll get swallowed up. And then to go down, and like the thing that bothered me was hitting them at their pain points, getting them selling with emotion. And I know that that's part of that whole thing, but it made me feel yucky to try to scare somebody into buying from me. And
Or making them feel like they had to.
Right. But so that's the fear, right? The fear is that if you don't do this, this is the path that you're going to go on, and it's going to be horrible. Or,
oh my gosh, that,
you know what I mean? Or if you,
that
like one
reminds
of the
me,
things was if they say I can't afford it, well, can you put a price on your child? Can you
you're
put a
right.
price on your family having this outcome? And then making them feel horrible that, oh, well, yeah,
Mhm.
I don't want, my child's everything, and it's priceless, but I can't afford it. But how am I going to do this? Because if I don't, then my child is doomed. And I don't like that. I do not like trying to scare people into buying from me.
Well, one of it only happened a couple of times. I'm so thankful. I quickly realized that there was a problem in the way that I was being told to handle things. Literally, when I first started, my tagline, my whole thing was learn how to heal trauma without reliving the trauma. And that was true. Like, when I guided people through which is High Vibe Alchemy now. High Vibes Alchemy is my heal from trauma without reliving trauma program. And so when we go into High Vibes Alchemy, there is no, okay, well, what happened to you when you were little, and this, and this, and this. Now, if trauma comes up in that process, it's because it's already being relived. But any trauma that you've forgotten, we don't have to dig that. We don't have to dig these things up. Anything that's not already being replayed, we don't need to bring anything else up, right?
Mhm.
So we can heal these traumas and these emotions without even knowing where they came from or why we have them. We don't have to go into our past lives. We don't have to know your timeline of everything that's happened to you in your life to get these things to move. All we have to do is be able to identify the emotion, and we can break through it, or the thought, or the experience, the part of you that's coming up. All we have to do is be able to identify that, and we can break through. And then I had the business coach, and I remember she praised me. She praised me for doing this thing that I felt so bad for doing, because she would make me record the sales calls. And so she told me, you need to spend the first 30 to 45 minutes making them tell you all of the pain. all of the pain. So I did 2 sales calls like this, and I did exactly what the coach told me to do. Both sales calls, the women were crying,
Yep.
and neither of them could afford, neither of them bought. And all that did was leave me feeling like shit.
Yep.
But I was praised. I was praised. I was said, no, you're on the right track. This is it. You're making them feel the emotions. And I'm like, I didn't get either of those sales. Actually, one of those girls I went to high school with, and she blocked me after that sales call. And I wasn't mean. I wasn't mean in the sales
No.
call, but I know
They
for a
left the
fact
phone
that
call
I
feeling worse
triggered.
than they started, right? You
Yes.
know, like I
Yes.
had women crying, and then I felt so horrible because I was leaving them now in such pain with no solution that and it was the only thing that was standing in their way was money. And it made me feel horrible to
Well,
do
and
that.
and that's why, like, number one, that's why I've built the way that I'm going about building my business right now is the reason I'm doing everything is because of these things that I experienced trying to do it other people's way. And so now my prices are low because I want them to be low. I want many people to be able to join us. I want a whole big,
We
massive
want an
group.
army.
I want the cohort. I want a massive cohort. And I know that I'm not going to attract my soul tribe if my prices are $5,000 and $10,000. I'm so sorry. I want to make sure that the price is affordable with affordable monthly extended payments, whatever you guys need to be able to get in here, get in this information, and have a good time doing it. I don't even do sales calls anymore, and I will not do sales calls anymore. I do free tarot readings so people can connect with me. And then after that tarot reading, and I state it when you book for the tarot reading at the end of the call, do you want Heather to show you the paid options? You have to click yes or no. So if you say yes, then I can show you, hey, we have High Vibe Alchemy. Hey, we have Manifestation Breakthrough. And then, of course, coming up is Consciousness Leadership Academy with the certification programs. But I'll just so the sales call is, this is what we have. This is how much it is. And I think you'd be a good fit for it. What are your thoughts? There is no, what's your problem? What's your goals? What's this? And I mean, not saying that we're not going to talk about like, what's your goals or like, what's like what you feel is standing in your way, but we're going to spend maybe 5 minutes on that. Maybe 5 minutes, whereas everybody else is going to tell you, every other business coach, or anytime you run into this, or maybe you've been a victim of being on a sales call where somebody pushed you into buying because they played on those really painful emotions. Yeah, me too. Me too.
I've gotten sold on so many things. That's why, like, when people come and knock at the door, I'm like to my husband, like, go answer it, because they're gonna I can't say I can't. They're gonna make me feel bad, and I'm gonna have to do it. I don't have to say no to these people.
Well, and another thing too is I also don't do like the cold DMs or try to like add a bunch of people or whatever. Cause like, I mean, I know that it's a great way to build the audience. But I think for the most part, if you just show up online and you just post your content, it can take time. It really, from my experience, it can take time to build an audience this way. But the more I'm just posting, the more followers I get. The more I just post what's true, like what resonates with me, the more followers I get, or the greater, like the greater the reactions and engagements on my content becomes. And then the algorithm gets pushed and people are following me and adding me. And then me doing this podcast, I'm meeting so many people. Like I remember I made a post saying, hey, I'm looking for guests. And just through that, people are like, oh, I'm going to take your free masterclass. Oh, I'm going to take, I don't know if people are going to purchase anything, and that's fine. I'm not here for that. I have laid it all out in my masterclass. I show a big piece and portion of what you learn at Manifestation Breakthrough and High Vibe is Alchemy. And I feel like that's the best thing you can do is just lay it out, show people what you've got, and then allow them to come to you. Like I said, every single client that I've gotten, even though in the middle of it, I was doing all these strategies, I got them all because they just came to me, because they just found me and they could clearly see what I was teaching and they wanted it. Mm-hmm. It was not any, oh, let me meet this. I don't ever went from stranger to DM to phone call to sale. I don't think it's ever happened. I think that I go from stranger meeting me to getting in a DM with me, phone call with me, and then a client. Like, they always came to me.
Yeah.
Somebody somehow, and if you ask most of my clients, besides Sue's the only exception because we know where we met. But most of my other clients, they're like, I don't even know how I found you. You just popped up into my vortex and I just knew that I needed to work with you. And that's how I like my business to be built, is from just people just finding me because of my, like, the way that I'm showing up. And I don't have to work hard. I don't have, I will not, you will not see on my schedule 3 hours to deal with DMs anymore. No, I don't do it. I'm not adding friends anymore. I'm not trying to do any, I'm just posting, just showing up. I'm just being myself, just telling my truth, doing this podcast, and whatever comes from it, comes from it. And I feel good. I feel good. And I think that that's what matters the most. And if I'm actually really passionate about this and I believe like what I'm doing is really important, then it shouldn't really matter how long it takes. Yes, fine, money. But I feel like money can be made so many different ways. And I do believe that if I'm supposed to, whatever, I always believe like what's supposed to be funded will be funded anyways. So I don't rely on my career for money. I rely on the infinite spirit for money because abundance is always present. And there's always money, and abundance can come in many, many different miracles and ways. So I never try to position my career as, well, I'm only going to do it if it's making me money. Because that, to me, I always wanted a church. I was like, I'd be the person that would just start a church, teach all this for free. I just want the congregation. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just want the people to come in. I want them to have the availability. I want them to have the ability to be able to get into my space. I don't want to create these walls and barriers where people are like, well, I really want to connect with you, but this is not possible for me to do. And so I really wanted to eliminate all of that. And so that way the people who really wanted to learn could. That's what I wanted the most out of this.
Yeah. I originally got in because I'm like, this, they're saying I can do this. This looks easy. I can, and make a lot of money. And that was not true. And then I spent a long time hating myself, thinking that I was a loser. And it was all because I wasn't committed. I wasn't doing all the things I was supposed to do. I wasn't doing my DMs and asking for the call. I was not, if you don't have the numbers, it's all numbers. You've got to talk to this many people and get this many, and then this many, and then that will come to one sale. And it was like, and then it's like, but it's fine. It's really easy because you can just ask one person a day. And it's like, well, what happens if I don't get into a conversation where I can ask, or I don't feel comfortable asking?
There's so many. Yes, there's
and then or making all these calls, and I'm like, oh, I'm booking all these calls. They look great, and then like nobody shows up, and they don't answer the phone. They don't even whatever, and it's like, okay, and how do I get across that if I call you, I'm not gonna try to sell you something, but I kind of am. And I said, like, isn't this kind of sleazy if I'm like, hey, we're just having a 15-minute chat, no obligation. And then you talk, and then you're like, well, let's make a longer call so that we can have this conversation and I can tell you options. And then it kind of comes out like, oh, okay, now if I make this other call, it's possible that there'll be, so that they're more aware. And my 15-minute little calls would be like an hour. And my coach was like, you're not supposed to talk to people that long. You're not supposed to be coaching on this call. You're not supposed to. And I was like, okay, how do you have a conversation in 15 minutes? Hey, how you doing? Good. And then he started to tell you a story. And then I'm looking at the time and I'm like, okay, it's 10 minutes. Like in 5 minutes, I got to wrap this all up. Like it just gave me so much stress and heartburn. Just
Heartburn. I love that. That's hilarious. You're so funny.
it's just like I'm sitting in front of the thing going,
But we are.
should I ask? Should I not ask? Should I ask? I should. And then I don't ask, and then like, oh, I didn't ask. I should. It's just like I was so stressed.
And now I have acid reflux.
DMs.
That is so funny. Yeah, I think we're coming up on our time, so I'm going to wrap us up here. But I enjoyed this conversation with you. I think it's really nice. I think my main mission with this season of the podcast is to just talk a little bit more about like the truth of these journeys and these experiences. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with not wanting to charge a bunch of money or for your services, or wanting to make it accessible for the many instead of the few. And then two, just aligning with your passion. And for me, I think ultimately the only reason I was able to even get out of these tricks and these scams or whatever that I kind of felt like I was in was for me to align with the infinite spirit. When I aligned with the infinite spirit and I really realized that my clients are not the source of my abundance, my career is not the source of my abundance. And, what I say, my message and my Facebook post or my, connections, these are not the sources of my abundance. My abundance is always here. And when you can be in alignment with the infinite spirit as the source of the abundance, you can stop showing up in a way where you're not aligned to it. Because I didn't know, I was not confident that my abundance and that my divine birthright was for me to just be taken care of. I was not confident in that a few years ago. And that's why it was so easy for me to fall into these tricks of these business strategies and tools or whatever. And so once I realized, like, I don't have to do this. I don't have to work this hard. I don't have to show up this way because I'm divinely taken care of. Now I can show up the way that I want. And yes, things take time in this way. But I remember when I first started my career, and we'll close it on this. There was a girl that would message me and said, you should be charging $10K right now for your program. And I literally just graduated. I literally had just graduated and got my certification. And I replied, I was like, I'm not interested in charging $10K. And I am already clear that it's going to take me some time to eat. Like, now, if I do become famous and like everybody's trying to rip at me to get to me, then yeah, I guess it would have to be $10,000 so that only a few could. Right. But I'm not there. I'm not at this point where I'm on TV and I'm not accessible. And I don't even know that I want to be at that place anymore, because I've learned now what it takes to be there. And I don't think it's so funny. I think I've officially transitioned from, I don't know if I have what it takes, to knowing I have what it takes. And I just don't want to give what it takes. I'm good on it. And, Jim Carrey says, don't become rich and famous just to figure out that it's not what was going to make you happy or something like that. He says, like, you don't need to become rich and famous to figure out anything, because it's not going to answer anything for you. It's not going to make anything better. And I went from trying to figure out how to get there to knowing that I could get there if I wanted to, and politely declining the offer because I didn't want to have to give, I don't want to have to sell my soul to this career or to this fame and fortune. No, I am rich right now. I get to be at home. I get to be with my daughter. I get to be with my family. I get to be with my animals. I get to be on my property. And I don't have to talk to 100 people, 100, every day. I don't have to do so many things. Like, I just get to be happy. I get to teach what I love to teach to people who just genuinely want to learn. And I am so happy and content. And if it goes somewhere if it goes somewhere big from here, from a place where I'm happy and I'm giving what I want to give, amazing. And I have that, me and Sue talk about like the Wizard of Oz, like the wizard working behind the curtain. And I feel that. I feel something turning behind the curtain. I don't know what amazing miracles and adventures my career has to wait for me and my clients, my students, Sue, everybody that I'm connected with. I'm so excited that because we're on very similar paths and we're getting to ride this this magic carpet ride together
Yeah.
in this whole new
We know
world.
someone's behind there
And
pulling all the levers, and it just once they get the combination right, boom. Watch out,
I can
world,
just
man.
feel it. I can just feel it. But I think the ultimate freedom in this is whether we feel like something awesome is coming down the road, you know, whatever, we know miracles are on their way. I think the big thing is the fact that I already feel blessed and already feel like I'm living in a miracle every single day because of the understanding and the knowings that I've aligned myself with so that I could build this from my own center and not somebody else's. And I think that that's an incredible gift to give yourself. So I hope that this episode was helpful for you guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And if you guys found value, be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform. Share this episode with people that you think might enjoy it as well, because that's the best way to help us grow. If you're enjoying what we are putting out there, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.